This is Matt Harris with another episode of Varato Podcast. And today we're with Anthony DiCioccio. Bam, got it. With ConnStep. And we're going to talk about all things ConnStep. I think it's a cool organization. Gotten to know them over the last year. They were at our event in October, and it sounds like they're doing really cool stuff. So we're going to talk about ConnStep today. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah. So, Anthony, why don't you give us an idea of, first of all, your background and kind of how you got into your current career and your role at ConnStep.
Absolutely. So, from my most recent role, prior to me being at ConnStep, I was a project manager for an organization called RGBSI. We were a subcontractor for Pratt & Whitney.
Mm-hmm.
We supported them with project management, engineering, so on and so forth. And that was where ConnStep found me. Prior to that, I also worked in the pharmaceutical industry for sterile injectables.
Mm-hmm.
We did high volume manufacturing, low mix. Prior to that, I was also in defense contracting, defense consulting, and I was also in the U.S. Army.
Nice.
In between those periods, I knocked out my education, University of New Haven for my undergrad, CCSU for my MBA, and I've got a couple of certs in between there for my PMP, Discipline Agile Scrum Master, Lean Six Sigma Black Belt.
Right on.
Thank you.
All right. I won't be challenging you physically during this podcast. You'll probably kick my ass.
You can if you want. It's okay.
So, how long have you been at ConnStep?
I've been at ConnStep now for about 9 months.
Okay.
It's been an adventure. It's been a good time.
Okay.
I'm the innovation technology consultant for the organization. I'm
Right.
also the service strategy consultant for the organization.
Okay.
So 2 different paths for the roles. But as far as innovation technology, I manage the projects relating to Industry 4.0 and technology implementation. A couple things that we do. We do like assessments. So we assess an organization's level of readiness to implement or execute on digital projects or Industry 4.0 technology-based projects. We execute tech scouting. We find organizations suitable technology partners to implement technology, and then we assist with the delivery of technology for the organization.
Right on. And these are mostly manufacturers, right?
Yes, specifically manufacturers.
Okay.
So I'll backtrack a little bit. So ConnStep is the MEP for the state of Connecticut, and the MEP is the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, right? So we are part of a national network that is a subgroup of NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. We specifically support small to medium-sized manufacturers in relation to lean, quality, EH&S, technology, cybersecurity, things of those pertaining to. And we help them improve their operational capabilities so they have a better performance in the market.
So my understanding is that NIST is a national organization.
Correct.
And the MEPs, you said?
Yep.
Are the local, explain how the structure of it. So, just so people can know.
NIST, and then we have all the MEPs. So each state has its own MEP center. An MEP center is sometimes a technology center. I think Maine is like an MEP that is part of a university, and they are also a technology center. So they do direct delivery to manufacturers.
Okay.
Others, it's more like a traditional consulting firm where you have a whole bunch of different skill sets to support manufacturers.
Okay. And this is part of, like, let's just say a bigger nationwide strategy to modernize manufacturing.
Correct. And this program's been around, I believe, since the 80s.
Since the 80s.
Correct.
Okay. And then there's a kind of a lean component to this too. Isn't that kind of where it kicked off?
Yes.
Which was like lean manufacturing, and the was it Toyota who pioneered a manufacturing, what's it called?
Toyota Production System.
Yeah. That we've kind of tried to emulate. So there was an idea even back in the 80s of, modernizing tracking
Yep.
Like measuring, and then implementing improvements. Like that's from the macro view, that's what we're talking about, right? Back from in the 80s, and now it's more,
It's very spot on. It's with lean, it was more focused on the reduction of waste within processes. Six Sigma, the reduction of variation within processes.
Okay.
If you're more lean oriented, you're using the PDCA, like plan, do, check, act, life cycle. If it's Lean Six Sigma, which combines both methodologies, you're looking more like a DMAIC life cycle.
Okay.
So different skill sets, but that is the general overview of it. It started off as like, we are the lean guys.
Yeah.
And then it developed into, okay, well, we can help manufacturers with all these different things, not just lean.
Do you know of a book called The Phoenix Project? You ever heard of this book?
Never heard of it.
So The Phoenix Project is a book where they took in DevOps, development operations, in a digital space, learned from manufacturing, work in progress, and adapted the development of code to fit the kind of, let's just say, the best in class practices of manufacturing. So they took an older manufacturing model and applied it to software development, and it's all about like, where are your bottlenecks. So even in the digital world of coding, there's like benefits of understanding what a really good, efficient manufacturing process is. All really processes, right? It's all systems and processes. But I thought that book was really cool because it was kind of bringing through the two worlds that like I often involved in, which is supply chain, manufacturing, distribution, and tech. Like, how are these worlds?
No, I'll have to give it a read after. Definitely.
Yeah, it's good. It's a really good book, but I think it's all kind of interesting overlap between code development and DevOps and then manufacturing. In terms of ConnStep, I also, first off, I want to talk about the funding aspect of this and the grants and stuff. But before, or you could talk about that now, but also in addition, what are like some case studies? What are some examples of like a business that you have helped or could help?
Absolutely. So traditionally within the scope of MEPs, it has been helping in the sense of lean, offering mentoring, waste reduction, value stream mapping. We offer a number of programs for like quality, lean, and so on and so forth. Most recently, cybersecurity. As it relates to technology, we have been moving towards, where do we see the most demand in the market to help manufacturers? Because not every manufacturer is ready for AI integration.
Right.
Not every manufacturer has the appetite for or the need for model-based definition. We want to take them in that direction, but they might not be ready.
Right.
So what we've seen the most demand for in the market recently has been IoT, data analysis, robotics in the form of automated packaging, automated material movement, machine tending. And that's what we're trying to focus on and say, okay, does this manufacturer need a robot that can package materials to a set tack time? And again, you'll have that overlap with lean principles as you incorporate this technology.
Right.
Or are they ready for that next step? And are we having a completely connected factory and incorporating AI and incorporating model-based definition to take them over that threshold? I'll say from my personal experience, it's been a lot of IoT. And managing implementation in that realm.
So Internet of Things.
Correct.
For the
Outside of that, sometimes it falls back to capital expenditure projects. So organizations that buy a machine with the good intention of executing a project. And there's that lack of follow through, the lack of continuity to a degree. So
lack of training,
lack of understanding. Maybe there was a misconception when the machine was originally sold. Right. So now you buy this machine. I'll give example from my time working for one of the larger defense manufacturers. A machine was bought, and typically there's a process to get these machines signed off on before they come in the building. So we're validating it for its emissions, we're validating it for EH&S, its size, its waste, and all this other things. And what ended up happening was that process got pushed off.
Yeah.
So someone received a phone call and said, hey, can you help us with this machine? It's like, oh, what's happening? It's stuck in the parking lot. Why is it stuck in the parking lot?
It won't fit.
It won't fit through the door.
Yeah.
And I've actually heard that story a couple times from a couple different manufacturers where we buy this
no
machine.
one measured the door.
Yeah.
Or measured the machine.
There's certain things that have to be planned for that we're taking into account prior to it. So now, as ConnStep, we also help with those projects as far as getting it over the finish line and getting it over the threshold. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
So like a company that might want to reach out to ConnStep, what would be an example of a company that should contact you guys?
Absolutely. Any organization that's looking to improve, that has a willingness to improve, I'll say. Because we want to work with people that, and size does not matter as far as the manufacturer.
Yeah.
We'll work with 5-person shops. We'll work with 500-person shops.
Mm-hmm.
We want to work with people that have the mindset of executing a project, finishing a project, and we can build that relationship with as the trusted partner.
Yeah, the businesses that essentially want to change.
Yeah.
Want to change.
Organizations that have the desire to change.
Yeah.
As far as getting in touch with us, it's as easy as calling we have business development advisors for each region of Connecticut. We can either put them in touch with the business development advisor, or there's a link on the ConnStep website.
Just go to the website.
Correct.
Basically. Yeah. I wanted to get into Industry 4.0 stuff for a little bit because our event was about Industry 4.0. I have my agency that I own is involved in e-commerce and a lot of B2B e-commerce, and we come from it from like almost a purely digital perspective. So it's like, is your business data in the cloud? How are you handling, organizing, and optimizing your order flow? How are you handling, optimizing your customer relations? How are you interacting with your buyers and suppliers digitally? Is that process automated, right? So Industry 4.0 is all your stuff in the cloud, all reducing as much friction as possible between your different systems talking to each other, centralizing your data in a single repository, getting to the point where you can use that data to measure your effectiveness.
Correct.
And be able to then make incremental improvements on your business flow. The part that my industry experience in my world I'm missing is the factory floor.
Got it.
Right? Yeah. So when I heard what you guys were doing and you're thinking of Industry 4.0, a lot of what you're thinking about is like, how do we make that physical space more efficient on the factory floor?
Absolutely.
And then how can we leverage data to optimize that? Yeah. Which is kind of interesting because then when I reach out and I look at like cloud computing and data, you start to see how like even the machines themselves and the other components of the business, the customer experience and the business intelligence are all kind of in the same machine. Like the machines themselves, the factory floor, the customers, the buying, the intelligence is all in an ideal future state business. Absolutely. Totally digitally transformed business. All those things can see each other. Yeah. And then someone at the top can now look at your data sets and get a comprehensive view of what's going on with your systems. So Industry 4.0 gets thrown around a lot. There's a lot like in biotech, with like what we're doing with bio measurements and augmented reality, and the digital twins is like another really cool concept. But I think, just from your perspective, when you talk about Industry 4.0, did I kind of get it right, or was I?
I think you're hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
So as far as Industry 4.0, when I talk to the client base, and I'll bring it back to the client base, we like to see that they have the fundamentals down. They have their lean principles. They have their quality systems in place. They have SOPs. We have an organization that has defined deliverables and they know their pace that they need to deliver that at.
Yeah.
Once we start talking about technology, we see what they have the appetite for, but the fundamentals don't necessarily need to be starting at the top.
Right.
So it's how do we convey the message of this is a benefit? Having a connected factory, once the light bulb goes off from the shop owner and they say, oh, I can see all of the uptime, downtime, machine efficiencies, output. How does this tie in? And the next step is then, okay, how do we incorporate an AI into this?
Yeah.
How do we incorporate our financial metrics into this?
Yeah.
And that way there's no more chasing your manufacturing supervisor on the shop floor to see what your output is for the day. There's no more hunting parts throughout the shop floor. You can have an RFID system that'll give you real-time locating for each part or fixture.
Yeah.
So a lot of the ambiguity behind manufacturing can be solved with technology.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to put out in the market right now.
Yeah. Yeah, like just in time, why are we warehousing all these parts?
Yep.
Well, because we don't have the business intelligence to know that when we're going to need them, right? We don't have projections on that, so we're shelving them, and parts on the shelf is lost money, basically. Yeah. Interesting. So I want to get back to NIST, and I know that there's some grants that can help businesses out, or do you guys get involved in that at all? Or
so grant funding predominantly is pushed through CCAT right now, actually. So are you familiar with CCAT?
Yeah, I'm familiar with CCAT.
So CCAT, for anyone listening that's not familiar, so CCAT is the Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology.
Right.
They have a number of programs that can help organizations get their hands on machinery, train their workforce. They also have a phenomenal digital thread lab, which is bringing people up to speed for model-based definition, some additive manufacturing, so on and so forth. We can also facilitate the conversation with CCAT, and that's something that we do pretty frequently as ConnStep.
Okay. Right. So ConnStep would come in when a business is like saying, we need to modernize, we need to kind of push the needle on, and we're not really sure what the next step is, but we need someone who is an organization to come and help us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you guys are focused on mostly Connecticut.
Explicitly Connecticut.
Okay. Yeah. Explicitly Connecticut. Is NIST a private or public organization, or is it quasi? How does it, like, who controls NIST? When was NIST created and why?
NIST, and I know my boss is going to listen to this and scream later, but so off memory, NIST is through the Department of Commerce, I believe.
Okay.
It's one of the federal departments.
But it's a federal organization, so there is federal money going into NIST.
Yes.
Okay.
So each MEP,
and indirectly, then there's money going into ConnStep, right?
Correct. So ConnStep is federally funded.
Okay.
Through NIST in the federal program.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the benefit of those funds and the benefit of ConnStep being a recipient of some of those funds, how is that helping small businesses? How are your services getting paid for from the private companies?
So the services are still paid for at a lesser rate than what you would get from like a Ernst & Young or like a Deloitte or something.
Okay, this is what I was getting at.
Yeah.
So there is a cost benefit of working with you guys.
Correct.
From the private company, the manufacturers.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that is a result of maybe some of the funding sources. That's what I was getting at. I didn't know it was in the form of grants or whatever, but I knew there was like there was a governmental funding entity behind this. So basically, you guys can keep your rates a little bit lower. Absolutely. Because it's somewhat subsidized by those. Yeah. So wrapping it up, how would you kind of summarize ConnStep? What's the elevator pitch? What's your mission?
To give a synopsis of it, we are Connecticut's MEP. We're here to support small to medium-sized manufacturers to help them grow. And we want to be there to support Connecticut manufacturers however possible.
Okay.
Whether you're 5 people or you're 500 people, we want to hear from you. We want to help you. We want to be there for them to support them in their manufacturing journey in their manufacturing operation. We want to be their trusted partner.
Right on. So the mission is make Connecticut better at manufacturing.
Absolutely.
Stuff, right? Yeah. So Anthony, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
DiCioccio.
Absolutely.
I got it right.
Yes,
Second time. That's good. It doesn't sound the way it's spelled, or unless maybe you're Italian and you know how to say those letters together. But DiCioccio. Got it, Anthony. ConnStep. Just Google ConnStep. It's going to come right up. ConnStep. And thanks for coming. Thanks for listening to Varato. I hope this was helpful. And we'll see you on the next podcast.